Ostani, the door looks different from the last time you knocked on it, as it does every time. Before you, between an archway, stands the closed door. The archway itself looks like stained glass, which, after several moments of processing, you realize that in this temporary space, it's the ebb and flow of the veil lines and the lines of this world, shifting around. Silver wisps flow from the locked door, but not going beyond, safely shut behind that locked door. The sound of bells happening every so often as another hum of vibration moves through. Ostani, what would you say is the color of your soul?
Ooh. I believe for Asani, who has started as a healer, is now helping with bearing souls. They feel pearlescent to me.
Okay. And you see kind of around with your spirit sight, your veil sight, kind of almost highlighting around the archway is your essence, kind of ever present, alert, poised to make sure that nothing goes beyond breaking through that tether from you to the door. With 5 questions as an option, you mentioned that you turned back towards the group. You can see Commander Tyneal, his eyebrows raising slightly, the gray kind of meshing with some of his bangs, before he closes his eyes, almost looking slightly pained and looking away. Rory and Diadora, can you please make a wisdom check for me, please?
Like just a general wisdom check?
Just a general wisdom check.
17.
17.
Nat 20.
Nat 20. Okay.
Okay, bitch.
Nicely done. The line that was drawn, the key that you see Ostani now holding, for a moment you see it, the door itself flicker. And then it actually turns into that same archway. Each of you, for a moment, specifically Diadora and Blackstone, it's just a moment between a moment, but you feel a passing of either sadness or comfort. There's a familiarity to it, but it's fleeting. Ostani, what do you do?
They have a bit of impatience, like in their hands. They're probably kind of like wrapping their wrists around, just trying to get that, maybe that crack or something. But it's conveyed to the both of you. We don't have much time, but we can ask 5 questions.
What kind of questions?
I suppose I should get my notebook then, or some kind of record keeping utensil. One moment. You are my favorite.
It is of importance that we understand that they can provide insight or advice. It might not be clear, but if we are able to ask them, they should, to the best of their ability, answer truthfully. We can direct this to the question that both of you had, or to you, Rory, about the king.
Well, I suppose let us ask this question then. Spiritually, What is the condition of the king's soul?
Ostani would lean back down to the doorway and whisper, like, "Hello, friend," and repeat the question.
And as you lean down, again, you see those, almost as the wind kind of carrying you, the kind of silver threads peeking through the doorknob, slowly shifting, almost in greeting. You see one of the threads slowly starting to transition out towards you, almost like it's trying to, like a hand reaching out. Do you make contact or no?
They will.
Okay. As you make contact, you get a sensation like the one that you had back at the temple itself, watching that steady line of spirit, like a river moving through the temple itself. And you are slowly, like ripple effects of raindrops. You see memories, not of your own. And it's slightly confusing because it seems like it's coming from various individuals, but you know that this is how the veil communicates with you. You see what appears to be at one point some kind of library and an hourglass standing on the table as the sand is slowly dwindling down, not dropping, but slowly spiraling. You can see that at this point, the sand that's at the bottom portion of the hourglass looks like it's about a quarter of the way full, as it is ebbing and moving. The sand at the top, more of a crimson red before it transitions to a black. As you see a hand from just off view of perhaps a scribe or some other literarian at some point continues their quill as the hourglass is tapped once or twice and the vision fades.
As the vision was going through, they describe it in detail back to the two of you.
He's running out of time.
I believe so. The scribe in the corner and the other... They indicate to me that others know of his condition.
I mean, they would have to know. If they're the ones who put him there in the first place.
Well, let me ask you, Ostani, in your experience with seeing these visions, what does it typically mean when a scribe appears?
It depends on the context, so typically I see it as maybe one from the beyond cataloging the journeys of someone who's lived a long time, or it could be someone real who is sitting next to them. And for the king here, it feels like there's someone next to him knowing what is going on. In a vision of a child, it could be a motherly figure or someone who is a teacher. It depends on who I'm looking at. But someone knows, whether it's caring or manipulation. Someone is in charge of their, what do you call it? The cataloging.
I see. Then perhaps a second question. A bit more complex of one this time, I believe. But first, Captain Tyneo, Diadora, do either of you have a question you would like to ask?
No, Rory, I trust you to ask the right questions.
And you see at this point, Commander Chineel has kind of is doing a thing where he wants to look, but is also not looking at the same time. He seems to be trying to remain very respectful and present. But a rare moment, I think, for you, Diadora, that you see him kind of teetering that line. And he just kind of shakes his head, just kind of still looking away.
Why do you hesitate?
And his eyes lock on yours. Do you mind rolling for me either an Arcana or a Religion check for me, please?
Okay.
Can I
They
also,
are both the same, so it's fine.
Can I also roll one of these, considering I'm right there?
Sure.
Can I see that reaction?
And Ostani,
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome. Although this is an effect you're familiar with, I will say. You've seen this look before.
Okay.
What would you say this look translates to?
Heartache.
At least for Ostani.
Loss. A little bit of joy, but at the same time, it's one of those of something is there but out of reach. Gotcha. Thank you, Sin. And what did you...
I got a 6.
Okay. Theodore, you're not really sure. It could just be that he's uncomfortable around a lot of different magics, and there is a lot that's going on, and he's processing a lot. You know him to always have a mind that is working constantly, so it's a little bit harder to pick up. But Blackstone, and specifically with Ostani, the piercing of the veil spell that happens, it's one that what appears is never the same. For those with veil sight and that have been already through the initiation, moving from the fledgling to the seeker to a watcher, now tied to the veil in some proximity, a door appears for the watchers. For those that are not as inherently tied to the veil, though, it can transform, especially if unfamiliar, into something else, into someone they have lost. And that is specifically tied to whatever they might be feeling in this moment, whether that's regret, or joy, or sadness, pain, loss, anything that is present as a kind of forefront emotion connects with a spirit from the beyond that's connected to them. And with that role, even though it's been a week, you know that Tyneel has talked about how he does have regrets that he didn't notice things earlier. So presumably, in his eyes, he is most likely seeing a spirit of his that he regrets. Whether it's someone that he failed or otherwise. But it's a moment of pain for him. And he, even though he is someone that is always ready to face everything head on, you see him not crumbling, but trying to find a good neutral standpoint, if that makes sense. But yeah, Ostani, you've seen this look a few times before.
Because they're not familiar with them, and I feel like in many of these situations, it's best to kind of wait until they kind of talk themselves. Asani's just, you see their hands kind of clasp together and wait for Diadora or Rory to...
Ask more questions. Um, Diadora, through telepathy, directed straight to her, gets the gets more of an emotional impression than like words or images of just Tyneal having somewhat complex grieving feelings. And in that impression is also kind of like a hint of both compassion and like beneath that a layer of curiosity about what that is. It's that I'm curious about it, but it's also a place I shouldn't go. And all of that is woven into like the passage of that emotion.
I think Diadora, I make eye contact with you briefly and then look away, and like you feel, I think maybe something close off inside her mind, not like shutting you out completely, but like maybe like guarding a knowledge that she has that she doesn't want to reveal because it's not her knowledge to tell. But like as you impart this on her, she like there's like an instant understanding of like what Tyneal, like where that's coming from.
My second question would be, which of the king's enemies are responsible for his condition? I cannot imagine that you get to rulership without having a few, but I think someone possibly closer to him than most would be responsible for this. Who is that person?
Are we looking for responsibility or someone who sticks close until they can do the final harm?
Well, I suppose if we're to take action on this, then we would need to know both. And I imagine that that's probably a question apiece.
I think we could ask who are the ones responsible for this and acting in a malicious way. If they're going to answer in vision, then they must meet and talk or converse, and I don't know, but if they can only show us one, then we'll see what the answer is and go from there. We have 3 questions remaining.
I think we should be more specific with this question, because it leaves too much room for a broad answer. We need to know who within the king's circle is responsible for this, because only somebody who could get close to him would be able to do this. Who in his ranks, his staff, whoever is close to him.
When they said responsible for this, Ostani has a smile on their face. That we can do. And they'll start leaning down again. Hello, friend. The king has many in their circle. Who amongst them is responsible for this?
You see, after a moment, another memory coming to mind. This one, it's not smooth around the edges. It's charred. There are spots where it looks like almost like portions of this memory were either burned away or attempted to be burned away. But you see what appears to be a chessboard. But the pieces, instead of being solid stone as they're typically, or even wood, appear to be all made of different candles. With the king's piece in the very center of the board. Around it, kind of oscillating between colors of blues and greens, you see the bishop, the rook, the queen, and the knight pieces. Each one has a candle atop their head that is lit. The one that looks like it's burned down the most is the knight piece. The second that is burned down is the bishop. The third, the rook. The fourth, the queen.
Ostani's response is, after they've described this, like they're counting it down for the for everything to be noted. Do either of you know of them, of who they represent? The knight, the bishop, the ones that are not clear. Of course, the queen, but
Let me think about this for a moment. And I use minor illusion to make an image of what Ostani has just described. So there is a chessboard that appears, kind of narrowed to one spot, and then you see kind of like, it looks like cartoon two-dimensional characters, like not like a super detailed 3D image, right? Like a chessboard, and then those pieces with candles on them, and then like something that represents like 25% burned, 33% burned, and all of this other stuff. Now, blue-green, well, I think we all know at this point that that is definitely not a good thing.
all right.
I feel like the queen is easy enough. You said it is the queen of this place, yes?
Yes.
Can you think for a moment of what she looks like?
An image comes to mind.
Do you mind if I borrow that image from you?
Yes, please.
And the chess piece in the illusion turns into like a similarly rendered vision of like what the queen looks like.
And you see before you a half tiefling, half Aasimar. Black hair, long on one side that's curled, that goes down to below her knees and almost drags across the floor if it wasn't partially in enough to. Half up, half down. Her right side is silver hair. She wears a kind of circlet around one horn, which is on the silver side. She has skin that looks almost like nightshade. Bright green piercing eyes. Kind. She stands at about 5'9", very high in stature with how she carries herself. Usually wearing kind of these navy kind of blue dresses or robes with silver and gold. She dresses for a queen pretty modestly compared to other queens in history. She is not native to Jorix. She's from up north. And her name, because I'm assuming you're going to ask for that next, is, let me pull it up for my little list. Here it is. It is Kenna Danforth.
You know what I'm going to ask you next, so I will just wait for it to appear in such a place. So this is the queen. A bishop, I would have to assume, would be a religious leader of some kind.
There could be those amongst them that practice the same way but do not follow an order. A minister, one who sits on the council, so it could be someone of higher knowledge if it's not religious.
I suppose
I
of
don't-
them. I suppose of them, it would have to be someone that the king holds in confidence. We might have to come back to that one later.
I think I turn to Tyneal.
Yeah.
And say, of these figures, and given your knowledge of the happenings in court, who does the king hold in high regard? Who does he keep close?
And you see him kind of pause for a moment before, with the image still up, he looks at squarely at the night piece. This piece could possibly be two different people. Either his head of the military, part of the council, and he gestures towards Ostani, who has been in his life and is a cousin of his for the last... He's been a cousin in his life, but he's been active in the king's life for the past 15 years. And his name is Verero. Verero.
Wait, can you spell that again?
Yes, Verero. Verero.
Oh, okay. I was like, Valero.
No.
The gas station.
No.
No, Ferrero Rocher.
And it is a position his father held before him. He took over. And you see him pause again. Or it could be the king in his younger days used to joust. And he was very, very close with not so young anymore. But you see this, as he's saying this, like the images are popping up too of what they look like. And I'll get back to Verero. But Brandon Cunningham, he was a squire. His family was nothing. But he quickly became the king's favorite. And through all of that, especially when the king finally became of age, he raised his friend up from a squire to a lord, who they took over the estate of another noble family that had been attempting to overthrow this king. And you see the image of Brandon Cunningham, who is this, looks like a half orc, half Triton, kind of blue-green skin with spots of brown. Hair's pulled back. He looks like at this point, you see it kind of jump positioning between him at a younger age where he has kind of this black hair with seaweed that's kind of interwoven into it, that's in a half up, half down, to now it's like sheared on both sides and up in a bun. Fierce look on his face. He's got scars all over from the various jousting and battles that he's been part of. Stands very strong. Looking at him, you would have never known that in the world of Ampistrano he was born of lower birth. Seems like he took to it like water. Verero, you see, is a much older gentleman. Is a what appears to be a goblin. In his, I would say, about 70s, give or take. Wearing brown kind of robes, half-moon spectacles with, a, again, similar, very fierce look on his face. He wears, in spite of his military aspects and being part of that kind of branch and being the head of it, he doesn't wear any of the kind of decoration similar to Tyneal. Doesn't wear a lot of that extra stuff. He seems to want to blend in, to want to keep an eye out. Versus Brandon, who likes to dress to show that he is definitely of money at this point. And you see Tyneal kind of looking between these two figures, almost like he's trying to read through the images.
Well, Tyneal, I have a question for you. Have either of these two spoken to you about the king's condition?
I've spoken with, and you see him roll his eyes, Lord Cunningham at the gala that was held, I want to say about 3 weeks ago. Briefly, this was just when the king had started to, this was the last event that the king had attended. And we had noted that he was moving a bit poorly and slowly, and that we were keeping an eye on the situation. Brandon was paying little to no mind, as he had apparently other things to worry about, but we both clocked it.
What things did he have to worry about?
He's a bit of a playboy at court, so typically looking out for anyone who might be new. He, amongst some of the other more established ranks, we will say, is known as kind of a dowry hunter, family fortune hunter, so to speak. So that was more of a priority for him.
Seems like odd behavior when your longtime friend isn't doing well and you're still hunting for dowries.
I would agree with you.
Also, this is above table. His name is Brandon Cunningham. As soon as you said that name, I was like, that's the bad guy. Like, that's the bad, that's it. That's it. We found him. Like,
got him.
Got him. Your name gave you away, bitch. Like,
so
who knows?
There is a copy of a copy of the knights that are made, one representing Brandon and one representing Verrero.
Would Verrero have anything to gain from the king's death? Is he next in line for the throne, or?
For all intents and purposes, I wouldn't necessarily say next in line. The line of succession is still somewhat up in the air, as the king and his wife have not had any children. But Verrero is well liked at court. Most of the peace that we've been living in, and he says that in quotations, kind of gesturing around, many contribute to him and his father. So a lot of people are very loyal to him.
But not that I know a lot about this, but just based on that, because he is well liked and because there is something that's the line of succession is in the air, it stands to reason that if the king perished, he would probably be considered for the throne.
Possible. But he is not known to be the most patient, and he's quick to anger. And those that draw his ire, well, they're quickly removed from whatever position that they're in if they're seen as an obstacle. So, I have personally had, obviously, dealings with him for the better part of the last 20 or so years. Very kind, but very cutthroat, especially if he believes he is making the best of the decisions. And it's not You see him kind of focusing for a moment. It's not out of the scope for him to go rogue. He's made decisions that the king wouldn't have necessarily agreed with before. Of those exact decisions, unfortunately, I wasn't privy to, though, but court talks.
I'll have to ask you what they said at some other time. For the rook, I don't know. This piece is normally shaped as a tower, some sort of defense. Perhaps things that keep the kingdom stable. Maybe some unknown thing that keeps the city safe that people aren't openly aware of. Lines of information, a spy network perhaps.
Could be. Could also... And you see him kind of thinking a bit more. It could be a number, honestly. It could be someone as simple as someone who waits on him personally. Like a personal guard. To it could be his spy network. Someone within it. Or it could be the treasury. That would be my other guess.
Okay, so Jordan, your choice here. Can I roll an insight or an investigation with the information I have to figure out what the most likely of those options would be?
Can you specify a little bit more? That'll kind of help.
So the rook is a thing that's built
Yes.
like a castle,
Yes.
right? We are aware that there are a lot of things that would keep the king protected in that situation. Personal guards, or people who are just like, hey, just letting you know, someone tried to poison that drink, that's probably not a good idea, right? So between those two things, between the idea of a personal guard versus someone who might be in the shadows but keeps the king protected in indirect ways, can I roll an insight to guess which of those two options the rook represents?
And I apologize for all the questions. Are you inciting the situation, or are you inciting yourself on what Blackstone would be? Because I know sometimes you all ask.
Inciting the situation.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's do investigation with that.
Okay, that is a total of 21 on investigation.
Okay. With a 21, you can see that both are very, very plausible. If it was a network of spies, like the King's spy network, that line of communication would have likely broken down already. Because someone sneezes and usually the king knows about it. And by extension, anybody that the king would know. So, while a good option, not as strong as the other one.
Like a personal, like, attendant or something like that?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And it could be a
Tanya.
guard, it could be one of his chamber people. I mean, it's broad, but at least that kind of focuses in on who would have the most direct access to the king. Perhaps, given that role that you just did, perhaps in the moments too when he's more vulnerable.
Daniel, other than the queen, who is a person in the king's service that never leaves his side?
You see him kind of pacing again, thinking. And you see him pause for a second. I don't know necessarily about a solitary person, because he's had several of them, but they're kind of known as the stewards of the chamber. Typically, it's a person of kind of lower birth, not as low as a squire, for instance, but kind of like Charles was, or Brandon rather, was at one point a steward as he was rising up in the ranks. But they're always with him. When the king is not with his wife, when nighttime happens and he's in his own chambers, the steward typically sleeps in the same room on a cot. He runs errands for the king. He is almost always present in some capacity.
And he has access to maybe change things within the king's bedchambers.
Correct. He's like a personal butler almost.
Do we know? You don't know this person's name?
No. In fact, he's just had a recent change, I want to say about 6 months ago. And I can't say I've caught his name.
And when did the king start getting sick?
I would say about a month ago. They're supposed to be more seen, not heard. And even then, scarce. Some people joke and say that they're technically beyond the network of spies and whispers in that respect. He's off. That person individually is the king's shadow. Always right there.
And you said this condition started a month ago.
Correct.
The newest attendant started 6 months ago?
Correct.
But we don't know who that is.
I have not encountered them.
Do you know the previous?
The previous one, and you see at this point he moves over to his desk, shifting around some papers before pulling out what looks like leaves that have been kind of wrapped together. Typically I need to do checks, and looks like, as he pulls up and I pull up my list, and you see him cock his head for a second. Their name was Airy, age 18, family lives in the Strand, which is by the farming districts, which is kind of in the outer area of Jorix. They were in that position before, and then you see him pause, as next to that list, you all can see it from the angle, is the list of names. And I would say Ostani. Diadora, you can't read, unfortunately. And Blackstone. I know, I almost said it, I'm like, nope. And Blackstone, you would recognize some of these names. Lord Kenrick Dansley, 21. Lavinia Stace, 24. Lady Willa Narrowfort.
These are missing people?
Correct.
And Airy is on that list
Airy
as
is
well.
on the list as well.
What was the third
E-R-I.
name?
E-R-I is the spelling, Airy.
E-R-I.
Oh yeah, I spelled that one correctly. That's cool.
I didn't.
No
I spelled
extra
it cuter.
credit.
I spelled it cuter, so yes, extra credit.
After Lord Kenrick, Lady Lavinia,
Mhm.
and there was one more person.
Lady Willa
Airy.
Narrowfort. W-I-L-A Narrowfort. N-E-R-E-F-O-R-T. And I'll put these in the Discord too.
Which of these is Ostani? Sorry, familiar with.
You would recognize
Who of
all
these?
of them. Most notably the Lady Willa, and I would say Lord Kenrick Dansley, because they're from noble families. You do recognize another name as well. This one, it doesn't seem has made as much of a stir, because the list itself is a mixture of nobility, kind of the working class, and then the lower as well. This name is Nyrok Corwin. They're from the Temple District. You know them to be one of the beacons not deacons, beacon, Beacon, at the Aquina Temple. And the reason that name is familiar to you is the Aquina Temple is the temple that takes over when the Veil Temple is done. That's where the sun moves next into the House of Aquina. So you probably, a beacon is, and I'm not going to make you roll for it because you would know this, they're the equivalent of the same station as you. So one who has been initiated into the order. And to your
All right.
knowledge, they have been missing for about 2 months.
They shared that look with everyone of, I know this name, or maybe they're like, when they hear that one, they're just like tapping at it as ready to pace a little bit, but you know, being a centaur, they barely can make that large circle, so they just go back and forth, come back to the small door. I think we need to use our next question carefully. There are a couple people we know that are missing, and many that surround our king.
People who are
I believe the
missing,
next-
though, may have a commonality in the people who took them.
I agree. Now I'm of two roads here. We can use this next question to find out who in the circle we can trust, that the spirit believes we should trust, narrowing our choices of who to direct our focus. Or the other path of using this question to find the commonality between these missing people.
Well, we do have 3 questions remaining, and given the state of affairs, I am also tempted to ask a follow-up question of the people who we can contact, which one of them would be most disruptive to the plot against the king currently in progress?
Disruptive how? Disruptive meaning they might be the next one that they would go after so that they can continue with their plans, or one who is the most at harm, most to do harm.
Something along the lines of the former. Captain Tyneal and Diadora might be able to speak to this on a more strategic level when it comes to war, but as I understand it, most of these things require power and secrecy. And that means the most dangerous thing for them is either awareness or exposure, and knowing if we were who we could confront that would make the continuation of this plot the most difficult to do without having to deal with us in some way might be useful information. To put it in words that you have used, what person in this chain is currently the most instrumental in the harm that is happening?
The most instrumental, as in the one who is directly causing the harm,
Or at
or
least
who is a tool to be used.
the tool to be used in this case, the most powerful enabler of what is happening. For example, or, to use a previous memory here, who is the pity weather of this situation?
With the candles, But there are like the demarcations of like how far down they've melted.
Yes.
Are those indications of like who is the most involved? Can we like, is that like something we can gather from the knowledge that we've been given by the entity behind the door?
I would leave it up to your interpretation of it. And the only reason I'm answering it that way is because it's a little bit unclear. Either that means yes, they're very involved, or no, they are not.
I think
Yeah.
Diadora would assume that any candle that is lit is some type of involvement. I think she would assume that whoever's lowest is probably the most involved, probably maybe even has the most to gain or lose from what's happening. I guess that would depend on, I mean, in chess you always kill the king first. I believe.
So you're thinking that the candles may be related to how involved someone is. But I have to wonder, when a candle is fully melted, it is no longer useful. And I wonder if that also has some implications about whether or not someone is at the end of their usefulness to whatever this is.
That is perhaps even a better theory.
We are speaking to a spirit who is able to glance at something, give us insight. They're going to give us the truth, but that is where the confusion can lie, because they may be interpreting one or the other.
Perhaps we could ask them, of these figures, who has the most to gain from it being successful, like who stands to gain the most from it.
And if I can add on to what you were saying, Ostani, real quick. The spirits are telling you what you're aware of and what they're aware of. There may be things, and they're answering as truthfully as they can, but there may be things that they may not be aware of, given especially the context of this situation with souls being harnessed. So it's one of those situations they're trying to give you what breadcrumbs they have, but they may not have all the answers either. The spirits are not all seeing, kind of thing.
Ostani, you said there was fraying at the edges of her vision.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to everything else, there is someone or something that might actively be trying to make information disappear.
How often would you say in these visions would that praying happen? Or how rare is this?
It happens every so often. Either because the individual is maybe trying to suppress it, or it's being suppressed or erased, or it's tied to a very deep, triggering kind of moment.
In this context, because of that rarity, they look at you quickly and just as if they're almost doing like, you got it. I believe so. Whatever it is given, it is hidden or erased or in the process of whatever they are doing, the pieces. They don't want to be seen, so
Well,
Let's
right.
do
Because
the
they were
question that you
sloppy
had.
before.
Mhm.
So of course they wouldn't want to be seen here because they were sloppy in Illipin.
Let's ask them about who is the most to gain, as you has recommended. That one that you said, was it Barrow or Brandon? I cannot remember. The one who was the cutthroat. And it's
Ferrero.
just Ostani.
Ferrero.
Ferrero.
Yeah, it just says Ostani going through the names, and
Yes.
so many to remember, and they're just. I want to just remove him from there because he doesn't seem the type as a potential. So I'm going to have that put to the least of my priorities when I'm talking to the spirits.
Sure.
Does anyone disagree?
No, I think that's correct because he is very overt in the things that he does. Rather than being in shadows, he is not afraid to oppose the king on this or even go over the king's head regarding decisions being made. So why would he now hide in the shadows?
I agree. They will lean down again to the door and ask the question of who is the most to gain in this situation.
And that same memory pops up of the chessboard with the pieces. You see the king removed from the board. You see the queen removed from the board. The other three still remain.
When they were standing around the king, they all had a circle formation. And when they had disappeared, are they in a formation of, like, I'm imagining a chessboard and there is no circular thing?
It's a triangle.
Is it a square? It's a triangle? That's, yeah.
Yep.
I was literally doing this.
Yep.
Who is at the top of that triangle? Possibly directed at the king or away from the king, I'm guessing, if the king was
All
here.
of them were facing the king, interestingly enough.
But like in that,
The point of the...
yeah, who is at the point closest to the king?
Knight.
Right. Now, I can assume that this is where the force is being applied, or this is the leadership, if we're assuming a hierarchy. It could also be on a chessboard, the one who is making the first move, and the two others are the ones leading the way. But we have our three.
And if I had to make a guess on which one to acquire, it would probably be, and I indicate the rook here of the three that are remaining, because these two, gesturing at the others, are I think it's the knight and the bishop, I believe, that are left.
Correct.
These two are in places where their absence would be noticed and therefore questioned. This one, not so much, since no one sees them. That being said, Tyneo, you might need us to also be people who could possibly do things in the background for you in a similar fashion. I do not believe that it would be at all wise or safe for you to be seen in direct opposition to that particular figure.
Agreed. And you kind of see he's fully shifted, is kind of just staring at the, even though we're in this kind of meeting of the minds lounge room, you can see he's looking at the wall where the king's crest had once hung. And he just seems like he's just almost piercing daggers, making some kind of, maybe it's a conspiracy board or something, as he's trying to connect pieces together and searching through Because Diadora, I would say you have the perfect view of his eyes kind of darting back and forth as he's trying to sort through a look you've seen on him many times as he's moving through battle formations and trainings. He is in that mode of trying to figure out what's the plan next. I would agree with you there.
Another question? Can we ask another question?
We can ask 2 other questions, if my calculations are correct on how many questions we've asked so far.
You are correct. There is one thing of the last question that I would like to save if we do not need it. But again, 2 questions.
I would like to know, of those 3, who is the most vulnerable?
Hello, friend. Of the triangle. Who is the one that we can bend?
An image of 3 candles on a table. All 3 are lit. In the scene as well, you can see there are gold coins and parchment on the table as well. Kind of equally in between, like the 3 candles are at the top and then everything else is below. And there seems to be some kind of gust of wind as each of the candles flicker. The one that remains lit is the deacon, bishop, that one. Thank you. Sorry. Too many church things bouncing around in my head. The bishop remains lit.
Oh.
So that could either mean that the bishop is most vulnerable or the bishop is the strongest because it remained lit.
I think we should take it for what the question was. Who is most vulnerable to us? And that is our intention, to thwart their plans. So I believe this means it is the bishop who is vulnerable.
And given the previous patterns in the vision of things being removed as we ask more refining questions, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means we are going to be dealing with someone who may not be strong physically, but may be powerful in other ways. And we will need to consider that as well.
It won't be our first time. Do we know what or who the king worships?
The king worships all the gods equally. So he doesn't have favor with a specific one. To have favor would be, and Ostani, I think you would know this too. To show favor to a specific one calls into a lot of question about like faith and favoritism. So
does he have a rotation of religious leaders who come through to provide him with advice and guidance, or is there one who also worships all the gods?
there is one, and you see him kind of concentrating. He's been at court forever. In fact, he was one of the religious figures at the time of his father, too. That's when he came into power. He's been around for a while. You see him kind of rubbing his eyes, thinking on it. I haven't seen him in a while, but he also doesn't usually attend the fanfare and galas that the king tends to throw. He prefers to kind of be a little bit more of the in-between, both at court but also around Ostani. You probably have seen him around the temple district walking around as well. But his name is Undera, and don't worry, I'll put this in the Discord before anyone asks. Undera Hillsworth. And I'll pop it in. And as
I got that one right. Yes.
as he's talking, the image of what appears to be an elderly looking gnome, looking to be probably 400 or 500 years old. He's got like blotches from weather, sickness is kind of scarred over the years, very tired looking eyes, short in stature. And I think the image that comes to mind, because it's the last time that Tyneal was remembering seeing them, is you do see a vision of the temple district as he seems to be talking and giving bread and other supplies to some of the like children and the hungry, giving blessings and kind words, very much adored in the space. And kind of pausing in between each of the different temple houses and paying homage before continuing on his way. He's got silver hair, although he's balding up at the top. Braids, and you can see there's also sickness, yes, but also a scar that goes from just under his right eye down to just below his left side of his jaw.
When was the last time, Ostani, do you know when the last time he was seen in Temple District?
Could I do an insight or history?
Yep, go ahead. I would say history.
Oh, is it 17 plus 3?
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. So he typically comes by every 10 day to do his kind of blessing, check in with the different leaders of the temples to see if they need anything. Like he did meet with Keeper Reyna. I would say at this point, probably about 5 days ago. That was the last one in the rotation.
Pretty public and has a calendar
Yeah, he's
routine.
very
Okay.
ritual regiment.
Mhm. Like I could go back to the temple and find like
Yes. There's
Got it.
been, I would say, you would also know that with this investigation, he's not one to normally miss things. And he has been, there was one time that he was sick. The word that was given was he was meeting with the king. And that would be the last 10 day. So about 15 days ago.
So he missed one 15 days ago.
Mm-hmm. Which he keeps the king's counsel. I mean, he's basically the person on standby to hear if the king needs to worship or needs to talk about anything.
And based on that, would he have been in the area when Nyrok went missing?
Mm-hmm.
Is this
Does he? Okay.
is this showing up on Diadora's like face, like this kind of red string kind of lining up kind of thing?
She
'Cause
and
Ostani's
Ty,
just
yeah, she and Tyneal have like the same facial expressions where like their brains are moving and like they're trying to like piece things together. She like Tyneal is her mentor. Like he taught her
Mhm.
a lot. So like some of the same facial expressions. They're both just sitting there with their arms crossed, just like going into a mind palace with their fucking red string conspiracy boards, just putting it all together.
I think you just see like the wall, like visions of like red string appearing all over the walls with safety pins.
So, question: you say that the temple of what is it? Aquina?
Aquina. Aquina.
Okay. I just couldn't remember the
Yep, you're good.
pronunciation. Aquina. That is the temple of the god who takes over once the veil is done, destroyed. What does
The
it
sun
mean?
moves towards the temple.
Yes.
So when it is finished with ours, it moves. I'm guessing astronomy more than like a prophecy, like when the shifting of the earth, kind of.
Correct. I'll give you this because you would know this. In fact, all of you would have at least some kind of knowledge of this. But the Aquina is the house of the Lightbringer. They're, and I'll put all this in the Discord too. They're revered by seers, bards, and seekers of knowledge alike. The Lightbringer has brought light and philosophy to the people of Ampistrano after the age of reticence. He was captured by the Silencer hundreds of years ago at the Falling. He was freed from his chains and darkness that once suffocated him. The Lightbringer uses his star bracers to spread philosophy, theology, arts, and sciences to all. You would see them around the temple district as many of their followers are dressed in robes of purple and red, usually carrying a brown book in their hands. Gold roses are interlaced around the robes to show where the chains of the Silencer once held them. They also wear 2 4-pointed gold stars on their sleeves with a red sash as well. They're not ones to really go out and about as much, as they are usually busy at the dawn when, just as Ostani stated, the sun shifts from focusing on the veil to then moving towards the dawn. That is their specific time. They only have one time of the day. So that is their space.
Okay, Diadora, I have 2 more questions.
You're good.
Does the bishop, does Undera, I know it seems like he has a routine. Does he also have a routine when it comes to visiting each of the temples? Like, where does he start? Where does he end?
He starts at Aquina, usually taking a nod to those of the Veil. And then he goes down the line, seemingly following the sun as it passes through each of the houses. So Aquina, then it moves to Biora afterwards, who is the god of arts and creation, for instance. Then it handles Ampistrano, who is more of the tempest and war, kind of moving through the pantheon until eventually ending up at the Veil.
Okay. And then have all the people who have gone missing at nighttime?
Primarily. There's been a couple that have been during the day.
Was Nyrok somebody who went missing during the day?
Nyrok was one that went missing during the evening as they were heading home. At that point, the word is, and this is Tyneal talking, that they had been let go from their position, and they had been living with their family in the Strand, and had been coming home after looking for jobs around the city when they went missing. 2 others have gone missing during the day, with one in broad daylight. The one in broad daylight was Lady Wyla Nerefort, who was out shopping.
Do we know why Nyrok lost their job?
Not anything that has been stated. And it's not uncommon for the king to get tired of somebody and wanting a change. You know, especially someone that's with them 24/7, essentially. It's very possible, since the king, while he doesn't keep favorites in terms of religion, he does have his favorites at court. And you kind of see, again, that memory of Brandon popping up for instance. He's been in and out of the king's favorite for years. His mood shifts much like the weather, unfortunately. So... But once he's set on someone in a favorite, they're usually a favorite for a long time.
Theodore's just thinking.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, the amount of things that we could avoid as global problems if people were a little bit more discerning about their company.
Mm-hmm. Well, to answer that too, and this is what I was getting towards at the beginning of our meeting, and I think I've mentioned it already, you will have the opportunity, because one of the missing has come back.
Right.
They're currently under supervision, but they're at their home with their family, living in the Strand.
Which one? Who came back?
He gestures further down to the list to a name that hasn't been said before. Hildegard is the only name that pops up. Hilderguard. Their family themselves are kind of have had odd jobs around the place as well. They serve a couple different lords. And right now they are living in the Strand. Just came back as of last night. Our theory, and you see him kind of looking around again, almost like making sure the bubble is still staying up and they're still in this mental space as they're kind of talking.
Oh yeah, I forgot we're all like sit actually.
Yeah.
Like I was supposed to go by, I was just sitting in chairs staring into fucking nothing.
You kind of see him like just doing that routine perimeter check real quick before he says his kind of thoughts aloud. Our theory is that either Hildegard escaped or was freed, and they used that opportunity to get their next victim. The Lampmaster.
I would like to... Third option. They were freed. But to
In
bring
exchange
disaster.
for something.
No, to bring disaster. We've seen people freed and they were just ticking time bombs, waiting to transform into something worse.
Well, you'll have the opportunity to talk to them and maybe decipher that for us. They're being looked after from afar, just because we don't want to call further attention to it, but the nobles and others don't know yet because we didn't want to open up that box of chaos.
I look to Tyneal and then I look to Rory and then Ostani. Let's see, I think maybe that should be where we start, just in case.
I would have to agree. I don't imagine the citizenry here would take well to an angry demonic crab running about the city.
Or worse.
Who or what is Hildebrand that they would bring that person back?
Parents' family work for nobility, different noble families. They have proximity to... And Diadora just kind of nods towards like the rich people neighborhood. Like, you know.
The Cloud Top district, which again you have a perfect view of because it goes main area up to the temple, up to the Cloud Top, then up to the castle.
And people like those who live on Cloud Top tend not to really notice people of lower birth. And I use that term extremely loosely.
Unfortunate, honestly, but alas, here we are. Hmm.
And you can see at this moment the door that you've conjured, Ostani, is starting to flicker a little bit because as you've been asking these questions, it's almost like little markers have been appearing as the questions have been asked. So it looks like
So,
whatever you have, it's waning. So if you're going to be asking something, now would be the time.
Asani, you said you had one last question you were considering asking. What is that question?
Forgive me, it is a selfish one. I tend to ask their name so I can call upon them again and what plane they are calling from. Every time I tap into the veil, it could be a different answer. So if we didn't need the last question, I could call upon them again since they were able to help.
And
Well, I suppose I think we have enough information to act on at the very least. So, um, by all means, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask that question unless anyone else has an objection.
It's your spell.
Ostani, totally expecting more visions, um, will just kneel down, give thanks, and as like the threads are coming unloose between them, hello, friend. And what may I call you?
And you hear the name in your mind, an echo as it goes, and a vision along with it as well. Kylan Frostbane. And you see an individual that looks like a human man, maybe 17, 18. Red hair, freckles all over. Interestingly enough, though, you're not viewing them as they were in life. Instead, they don't seem to be entirely whole. It looks like almost someone took a shotgun to their soul as there are pieces missing, fragmented. In fact, as he smiles, it shifts from that kind of full view and you see that half of his face is kind of worn away. And you see this sickly green energy that seems to be feeding off of that. Before... And at that point, the door kind of slowly siphons smaller and smaller until it's a single line, a thread. And the key that you were holding turns back into parchment. And that's where we're going to take our break.